Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next episode of my Makeup Dilemmas series, where I try to help you with your makeup problems, dilemmas, questions, and just try my best to help you guys out. So without further ado, let's get started. So as always, thank you so much to all of you who sent in your makeup dilemmas. I always post the question on my Instagram stories whenever it's time to do another one of these videos. So if you want to be featured in a future episode, then you must be following me on Instagram and reply to my calls for dilemmas on my Instagram stories. So as always, I try to answer as many of these as possible, but if we have covered it in a previous episode, then I don't, because obviously we've already done them. So that might be why, if you're wondering why I didn't answer your dilemma, it's because we've probably covered it in a previous episode, but otherwise I will do as many as I can. My camera's telling me I've got 30 minutes, so let's get on with it. First up, Natalie Napalm says, no matter what concealer I use, it does not completely cover my melasma. So I think a lot of the time concealer on top of melasma is not necessarily the best way to go, because the colour, it can almost make mine look grayer, and it almost makes it look worse because it's not really covering it, it's just kind of almost mixing with the undertone. The best thing to do for any kind of discoloration is colour corrector, a little tiny amount of colour corrector, and then the concealer will have a much easier job to do, or your foundation straight over the top will have a much easier job to do. I would 100% give colour corrector a go first, a tiny amount. You know, Charlotte Tilbury makes a great one. I haven't tried the Huda Beauty one, but I'm sure it will be solid because I feel like everything from Huda is solid. So colour corrector, try that first. I'm not sure exactly the right colour because it will depend. Some people's melasma is more brown, some is more grey, but you can have a look at lots of colour wheels, colour theory online to determine what is the best undertone to use for your specific melasma, and I would absolutely go for that. A really light, tiny amount of colour corrector, let it set, let it dry, and then concealer, give that a go. LM Crivers says, what makeup should you wear in your 40s? I love glitter, but should you stop wearing it? Don't you dare. Don't you dare stop wearing it if that's what you want to do. I am 39 and a half. Do I feel like in 6 months' time I suddenly have to stop wearing this kind of eyeshadow? No, wouldn't have thought so. Definitely not. I mean, come back in 6 months and see if I've suddenly stopped wearing glitter altogether. I imagine you will notice I'm still wearing it. I'll still be wearing whatever I want. There are a lot of things that people say once you reach a certain age, oh, we can't do that anymore. Shouldn't be wearing short skirts, shouldn't be wearing fitted dresses, shouldn't be dressing like this, shouldn't be revealing. I'm sorry, who made all of these rules and when did we sign up to them and when did we agree? We didn't. We can do whatever we like. And actually, the older we get, the more we know what we like, what looks good on us, what we enjoy, and also the less we care what other people think about us, okay? We're too old. We don't care anymore. When I was 15, all I cared about was what everybody else thought of me. As I've got older, I don't even know that's how little I care. I don't even know what people think. I've never bothered to ask or wonder. I don't care. I will do whatever I like, as should you. Do whatever makes you happy. It's your face, it's your life, it's your happiness. Stop it. Do you, lady. Lisa says, blush literally leaves my face immediately. Needs reapplication 3 times a day. Your face is just eating blush for breakfast. My skin does the same with fragrance. My skin is fragrance eating. Your skin is blush eating. How dare it? I mean, it's hungry. What can I tell you? Now, I don't know exactly what's going on here. I don't know what formulas of blush you've tried or your skin type or anything like that, but have you tried, I've got a few ideas to try. Have you tried the Charlotte Tilbury liquid matte blushes? Because those all are liquid, which typically cream and liquid blushes don't last as long as powders, but those are like a different kettle of fish, okay? Those dry down and they kind of set. So have you tried those? That's number 1. Number 2, setting with powder. on top. If you're wearing cream blush, 100% set the cream blush with a powder blush. If you are just using powder, I would try setting spray. It shouldn't be happening that blush is just disappearing off your face. It could be what is underneath the blush. I always find if my foundation is not wearing well, then what's on top of it is also going to disappear because it's, you know, it's like someone's whipped the tablecloth out from underneath it. You know what I'm saying? So if your foundation has disappeared, everything on top of it it's taking it with it. Okay, it's going along for the ride. It's a sinking ship. So make sure that your base products are holding up well enough. You know, primers, make sure your foundation is wearing well, it's working for you, and it's wearing longly enough. Set either with a powder if you're using creams or setting spray if you're using powders, and make sure you're using decent long wearing formulas. Give all of those things a try and let me know how it goes. So as almost every episode of Makeup Dilemmas, we had several questions about mascara, transferring and smudging on the lower lash line. We have covered this a couple of times before, but as it's always in here, I'm going to answer this one last time. I'm never answering this one again. But the thing with mascara smudging under our lower lash line, especially if you're not even wearing like lower lash mascara, and it's still happening. This is what's actually happening. A lot of people think the mascara is like running, but what's actually happening usually is that you have oily eyelids. Most people's eyelids are oilier than like the rest of their skin. Some people have exceptionally oily eyelids, and that is breaking down your mascara and causing it to smudge. Obviously, if it's wet and then it's making contact with your skin, it's going to transfer there. It's just going to happen. A few things that I have noticed that will help. One, making sure you're using a really good eyeshadow primer that's going to work with those oils and hold them at bay. Setting it with powder heavily to, again, keep those oils at bay. The other thing to make sure is that you're setting your under eye area a few times. I typically always lightly set my under eye area, but I have noticed if I don't do that, some mascaras are more prone to transferring because they're touching, again, a wet, unset surface where your concealer is, and it's smudging. Whereas if you've got a powdered set under eye, it's not going to smudge or transfer there as badly. The other thing to do is obviously waterproof mascara. That's your best bet. So those are my top tips for mascara smudging and transferring. It's so annoying. Why does it do that? God, just stay where we put you. Nikki D says, how do I do the latte makeup look without overdoing the bronzer? So I would suggest, whenever I feel like I'm overdoing bronzer or I want a really light bronzy look, what I actually do is cream or liquid contour, because it's just really easy. You know, something like the Charlotte Tilbury contour wand or the Victoria Beckham contour stylus, you literally draw it exactly where you want it and press it into the skin, and it will stay, you know, very subtle, very strategically placed. Whereas when you're going in with a powder bronzer, I don't know about you, but I get it all over the place. It's going everywhere, all over my entire face a lot of the time, unless I'm very careful. Whereas with those sticks, you can literally, I want it there, and then you push it into the skin and it's going to blend really nicely and seamlessly, and it's easier to control its position. So that might be something to give a try. Darlo Smurf says, I'm embarrassed to say I can't apply foundation with a brush. It always ends up streaky. Please help. First of all, never be embarrassed. Never be embarrassed in this safe, inviting, friendly, supportive environment, this space that we've created here. There is no silly question. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. We all have almost all of the same struggles and problems. You are not alone. You're not different. Everybody has these same issues. So the way to reduce like streaking or brush strokes when you're using a brush to apply foundation is to tweak the method. So one, make sure you've got a great brush. Two, some foundations will just do that. I've noticed that some foundations apply better with a sponge. Although I prefer using a brush, some foundations are just better with a sponge. For whatever reason, they leave more brush strokes. We don't know why. I don't know why. Probably someone does, but I don't. So some foundations just are better with a sponge. And actually, there's nothing wrong with using a sponge. If you find it easier, if it gets a better result for you, do that. you know, don't struggle for the trend's sake. But when I'm using a brush, I will start with sort of, you know, swiping motions just to get the foundation where I want it. And then I will kind of push it into the skin. I don't tend to buff with a brush. I will sort of apply it, get it where I want it, and then pat it to blend it in. You can also always go over the top with a sponge, and that's going to take any excess away and also pat away any brush strokes. So it might be, if you want the extra coverage and you don't want to lose as much product by using a sponge, go in with the brush first and then tap over the top with a sponge. But that's what I kind of do with my brushes. The Sonia G brushes are excellent. BK Beauty makes an excellent foundation brush. Rephr make an excellent foundation brush. I would check that the brush you're using is great. Check that the foundation you're using actually works well with a brush. You know, try a few different foundations, but that would be my tip for application is, you know, get it where you want it with the sort of swiping, spreading motions, and then pat with a sponge and just see if that helps. But no silly questions here. Never be embarrassed. Miranda says, tips on powder products directly over sunscreen that does not dry down. She doesn't use foundation. So I think what you're saying is that you go straight over the top of your SPF with powder products. So I feel like there's a few mistakes being made here. One, if your SPF isn't drying down and it's really causing problems with the makeup on top of it, I would try a different SPF. The Glow Screen by Supergoop, they do like a matte one. The Shiseido SPFs are excellent for under makeup, as are the La Roche-Posay. And so what I would do is either a thin layer, a dusting of powder, so your powder products are going on top of that powder and blending into powder, rather than, you know, making a paste a la Ross on Friends with his leather pants. That's the last thing we need. Either a light dusting of powder patted over the top to give you that sort of barrier, and that's going to give your powder product something to like cling to and blend into that isn't like a sticky SPF. Or try changing that SPF to something that actually dries down, sets a little more matte, or at least just works into the skin a little better. You could also try mineral SPF, you know, there's powder SPFs to try as like a second over the top of that. Just powder products do not like going on top of wet surfaces, okay? You also could try using cream or liquid blushes or bronzers as well, because that's going to go nicer on top of that sort of wet unset surface. Few different options to try. Yale Meow says, a good bridal eyeshadow palette. Now, not all brides are the same. We all have a different idea of what bridal makeup looks like these days. There always used to be like one way to go when it came to bridal makeup, but I think we've realized these days that you don't have to go for the like no makeup look. So it depends exactly what you want to do with your bridal makeup, your personal preference of how you want to look that day. So if you want like a more classic, all matte, very understated look, I would use the Pat McGrath Velvet Liaisons palette. If you want something with a little bit of shimmer, just that little bit more glam, I would go with Natasha Denona's Bieber palette. I feel like that's just going to give you that little bit more. If you still have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Instant Eye Look, I think that's a stunning bridal palette as well. If you want something a bit more leaning peachier, again, a very classic bridal look. Those are kind of my top three palettes that I would use if I was getting married today. I would also, you know, if I was getting married and I wanted to go more glam, I would also be looking at the Natasha Denona Glam Face and Eye palette. That would look glorious. And yes, the shimmers are very impactful, but you can use them lightly. You can, you know, really control them. Use a dry brush and get a slightly more subtle look from them. Lots of beautiful options for a sort of soft glam bridal look. That's kind of what I see as bridal look. I think Vega from Lisa Eldridge, if you want something cooler, would also be glorious for a wedding look. Denise says, I love makeup and trying out new looks, but at 56 worry that I look like mutton dressed as lamb. Don't ever say that about yourself ever again, young lady, okay? I hate that we say things to ourselves that we would never say to someone else. If you saw someone in your office or walking down the street who was your same age and they were wearing a full beat, full glam face of makeup and they looked fabulous, would you say about that lady, she looks like mutton dressed as lamb? Or would you think, she looks flippin' fabulous, I love it? I feel like you'd say the second one. So why are you saying the first one to yourself? We've got to be kinder to ourselves, and don't say things to yourself that you wouldn't say to someone else. I feel like this is so, like, it's such a common thing that we do to ourselves as women, is that we judge ourselves and hold ourselves by these other standards that we would never hold or judge anyone else by. I bet everyone who sees you thinks, what a glam lady. That's how I want to look when I'm a little bit older. When I'm 56, I want to still be rocking that eyeshadow like that. I plan to, absolutely. You do not look like Mum Dresser's Lamb. You look fabulous, glorious, beautiful, and very glam, and we're loving it. So be kind to yourself, please. I hope you can't hear my stomach growling, but it's 11:19. It's lunchtime. Apparently. Snow is Fab says, should I stand or sit when applying my makeup? I have never in my life even considered standing. I didn't know that was an option. I've only ever sat when doing my makeup, unless it's, you know, like a lipstick touch up in the ladies. I'm always sitting down. Rest your legs, you know, rest, get comfy, chill out. Also sitting down, I need like to rest on stuff. You know, I need all the help I can get with the sturdiness and all of that stuff. So I would always sit down. I didn't know standing was an option. Am I doing it wrong? Have I been doing it wrong this whole time? I say sit down. What do you guys say? Daisy says, how do I do a wing liner without it looking more like a comma in the corner of my eye? I know exactly what you mean. What I would say is practice 100% makes perfect when it comes to a wing liner. What I think is happening creating the comma, I think what you mean is it's like too thick close to the corner. You know, you want it to be like sharp, very, very fine. So one, it sounds like you're probably applying too much pressure with the liner. You want to like barely touch it. I would start with a pencil, a nice sharp eyeliner pencil, one that's very creamy, either Natasha Denona, Charlotte Tilbury makes great ones, and try drawing that and flicking. Don't push too hard, very light pressure, and you're less likely to get too much product there. However, if you do go too heavy-handed, you do make the comma, get a baby wipe, makeup wipe, any kind of wipe, not an antibacterial one. That's the only one you shouldn't get. Put it on your pointer. If you've got a claw, like me, even better, nice, sharp, and just carve it out. Carve it out. It's going to give you a bit more of a longer wing as well. It's going to drag the line up, give you much sharper, and it will take away some of the thickness that you've made accidentally at the bottom. That would be a clean up tip. But it sounds like you're probably pressing too hard or applying too heavy, and you just want to be very light. That's the exact noise you need to make. Do it with me. Perfect, problem solved. Louise Valvona says, all foundations pull pink on me. I've tried different undertones but can never get a good match. I would 100% go in to a counter somewhere and get them to do the hard graft for you, okay? Take a mirror or take theirs and go outside and look in natural daylight. Never fall for the inside lighting. It's going to fool you. I don't know what is in those lights that they have in like department stores. I don't know what they have in there, but it's lies and it's trickery. Any good makeup counter will do the same. Whenever I've gone in and got matched for foundation, base makeup, any makeup really, they will hand me their mirror and tell me to go outside or go and stand by the window and look in natural daylight and check that it's looking like it's the right undertone and it's matching your neck. If everything's pulling pink on you, steer clear of like neutral and cool tones. Obviously you need to go warmer if it's looking like it's too pink and it's not balancing with your undertones. Sounds like you need to go warmer. But I would go into a counter somewhere like Fenty where they have a lot of undertones to choose from. Nars have a lot of undertones to choose from. Get them to match you and talk through your undertone with you, and then go and look at it outside in natural daylight. And that's probably the best starting point. Once you know your undertones and you found an undertone that's working well and it's complementing your natural undertone, the rest is then easy. You just know that you pick that one up every time. But I feel like it's always good to get some help when you're getting it wrong, and it's very easily done. It's one of the hardest things in makeup, is like finding your undertone, and what shades work for you is so hard. I feel like all this information should be like on our birth certificate. At birth we get assigned an undertone. How much easier would our lives be? Makeup in Maroochydore, is that correct in any way, shape or form? I never use lip liner as I find it a waste of time and money. I mean, then don't use it. Don't waste your money on something that you don't value or that you don't get enjoyment out of or that you don't appreciate. Go lip liner free. Nothing wrong with that. I'm lazy sometimes and don't bother with lip liner, but I feel like it really does make a difference to how defined my lip line is and just how precise and how impactful my lip look is. I also just think they're fun to play with, you know, the combinations and things. They can make lots of lipstick work on me that would have otherwise been much too light. So I really appreciate a lip liner, but I am lazy in using them. So a lot of the time I don't bother, but if they're not for you, they're not for you. Not everything has to be for everybody. You don't have to use something because the next person does. If you don't enjoy them, don't spend your money on them, you know? Save for something that you do get and that you do love and that you do enjoy. Alina Dunn says, all of a sudden, my Pat McGrath eyeshadow lost all longevity. I'm using Urban Decay Primer Potion Unset. So the fact that you've said all of a sudden leads me to believe this has only just become a problem. Something has changed. Could it be, did you change to that primer? Were you previously using a different one? Maybe that primer's not working for you. Or have you had that Pat McGrath palette for a long time? Has it expired? Because as much as we like to pretend that expiry dates don't exist, well, I say that's what I do. They do actually exist, and it doesn't mean that, you know, come a year of opening all of our makeup we have to put it all in the bin, but sometimes you will notice a decline in performance or pigmentation and all of that as a product has expired, especially if you've used one a lot, you've put a lot of your natural oils in there with brushes, it's been exposed to the air a lot, all of that stuff. It actually does happen sometimes. So it could be, very sadly, that your palette has expired. If it's older, how long have you had it? Don't lie to me. Or is it that you've changed your primer? Has something changed? Have a little think about those two questions and get back to me. Victoria's Vanity says, I've got dry under eyes and no matter what concealer I use, it creases and my under eyes are so dry. You need a phenomenally good eye cream. So number one is eye cream in the morning, a lusciously hydrating one. The La Mer is glorious. I really like the Ren Beauty in the morning, really nice and hydrating. I mean, so many great eye creams these days. Kate Somerville has incredible eye creams, lots and lots of great eye creams. So that's number one. You really need to hydrate your under eye area as much as possible. Then use a hydrating concealer. I find the Dior is the most hydrating I've ever tried, but also it's not a huge disaster if your eyeshadow creases. If you've got very dry under eyes, you probably don't want to set it with powder. I'm assuming you've tried that, but I imagine if you've got very dry under eyes, that would make a sort of heavier, very dry feeling under eye for you. So I would suggest one, really heavy eye cream, really heavy hydrating eye cream. Two, let the creases happen, who cares? Tap them out. Concealer is very easy to work with in that way, you know, unset, tap it out, and, you know, let the creases happen, don't worry about it. Once they've come, tap them out. Maybe you have to do that a couple of times a day. If you can't set with the powder, that's what I would suggest doing. When I was on holiday and I was using my Tom Ford concealer unset because I just didn't want to take a powder with me and have it maybe smash, any creases that came, I just tapped them out and I went on with my day. But I would recommend 100% investing in an excellent, really hydrating, really long-lasting hydration under eye cream. Get that. Nikki D says, how glam can I get away with in the office? Now, the ceiling doesn't exist. I don't know that anyone has ever been like called in. Well, have you? Has that happened? I know that for me, I would never be like called in and told off about the amount of makeup I've got on. I just feel like that's a very old-fashioned thing where, you know, you might get told off about how you have your hair or perfume or what you're wearing makeup wise in the office. It's really unusual, I feel like, nowadays to actually have rules when it comes to makeup, or even, you know, a guideline of what makeup you should be wearing to the office. That's completely personal choice. What I feel like the only factor here is how you feel. Like the whole point of makeup is it makes you feel confident, it makes you feel yourself, it makes you feel beautiful, and that you enjoy it. And I think if in any way it's making you feel uncomfortable, or you stand out, or it's making you feel less happy in yourself, that for me is the only line. So it's personal choice. If you feel amazing with a full beat and a bright red lipstick, there is absolutely no rule that says you can't wear a bright lipstick. In fact, I feel like those people are so fun. Like, you know, if you see a teacher who's like rocking a red lipstick every day, I love it. She obviously feels really confident and good about themselves. She looks amazing. I love it. I feel like the same, you know, if you come across a receptionist and they've got a beautiful, it's a conversation starter. I feel like people look amazing and you should wear whatever makeup you want. But if it's making you actually feel self-conscious because you feel like you're wearing too much makeup, or everyone else in your office is very natural and understated, so you feel uncomfortable or you feel like you're inappropriate, the only thing that matters is how it makes you feel. So wear the makeup that makes you feel good, comfortable, confident, and most like yourself and happiest in your environment. If the makeup you're wearing is making you feel self-conscious, shy, or like out of place, then change it for yourself, not because you think other people are judging you, but wear the makeup that makes you feel happiest, best, most confident. I feel like no one actually is judging us as much as we are judging ourselves, and as much as we think. But how we feel is all that matters. So if you're feeling self-conscious, you know, wear makeup that's more toned down, that makes you feel more confident. But wear whatever makeup makes you feel best. It should be enhancing our inner dialect with ourselves, not making us question ourselves. So wear whatever you want, but it should be adding and not taking away from your confidence. Okay, we made it. We've got 1 minute left to quickly thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you so much if you submitted a makeup dilemma. I've got through as many as I can without my camera running out of space today. I think we covered most of them that we haven't covered before in previous videos. But if I didn't get to yours, I'm so sorry. I'm about to run out of space on my camera, so I just did as many as we possibly could that were new ones for today. Please make sure you're following me on Instagram if you want to take part in a future episode of this series. But I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.